Burkina Faso has launched a $12 million tomato processing factory. Now, the government of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traore, has been a strong advocate for food self-sufficiency. Just like his icon, Thomas Sankara, he said, if we cannot feed ourselves, then those who feed us will control us. Actually, if we do not feed ourselves, then we are still colonized. That's how he described it. And he was encouraging students of agriculture to go to the rural areas and to invest there, to apply what they have learned and make their country to be food self-sufficiency. Now, why am I talking about this? Because this tomato factory is really important for him. Besides the job creation and everything, it will serve Burkina Faso not to import those processed tomato products from outside. Then they will be able to boost that local market and feed their people. The other thing is that it shows these people under sanction, they are denied of loan or fund, any other or aid, and they are trying to do things by themselves. Burkina Faso has just set an example by paying all its debts. Now they are partnering instead with the countries, whether you call it global south or to the eastern part, it doesn't matter, but they are partnering with those countries who sees them as equal partner. Now bring this, try to look at other African countries. How many of the African countries have actually their own tomato processing factory? Most of them, they are bringing this from Europe and others, paying millions of dollars foreign currency, the foreign currencies that they get through loan and spending it on importing. There's nothing that benefits the country. So that being said, I will try to read this extract for you. Now, imagine if the so-called democratic government cannot build a $12 million factory to refine its own tomatoes, if the same government cannot champion the refining of its resources to benefit its citizens, if a democratically elected government's only duty is to borrow money so it can import the things it already has, then this should not be called democracy. We have to be honest that this is something else disguised as democracy. This is not democracy. We need to ask, ourselves. In fact, the Rastafari people call it democracy. They always like to twist the words. Now, if it has to take a military government to these things, to stop borrowing and subjecting citizens to hunger and dysfunction, then the so-called democratically elected government is worse than the military government, which should not be tolerated at all. This level of incompetence cannot continue to be defended in any way and at whatever cost should be dismantled. Now, what is the purpose of democracy? After all, it's not to merely waste time on voting. It's to vote for delivery of services. But if the voted cannot deliver the expectation, then that ceases to be democracy. Democracy cannot only stop at voting. In this sense, it loses its meaning, and it has completely lost its meaning in Africa. We cannot continue to accept something that delivers nothing as if it is a religion. If it is religious sect, then it should not be secularized to involve the whole country into voting. We cannot turn a religious sect and its process into governing the continent because it's only focused on spiritual edification. Government should be about delivering tangible and unquestionable results. If it fails to deliver, as majority African countries and governments have failed, they should all be dismantled because they have ceased to even have a semblance of democracy. Now, by the way, I'm reading an extract from Kwame Gonza's text. Now, democracy cannot stop at the ballot, nor can it be an intellectual exercise to satisfy a corrupt and useless elite who have turned into a sacred sword every time they are questioned about their incompetence and failure to turn Africa's valuables into prosperity. Then this is fake democracy. Now, the coups in the Sahel, beyond just being so, they are a moral challenge, an exposure of decay, deception, and rotten and corrupt African elites. It is an exposure of global greed and feeding on Africa to the impoverishment of its people under the guise of democracy. So the deception has to be dismantled and overthrown. Thank you, Kwame, for that text. I found it relating with this one. So I read it. Let us know in the comment section, what do you think of the achievement by Burkina Faso and versus other African countries who say that they are democratically elected but unable to feed their people while they are sitting with on fertile land with all the minerals. Let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this? Thanks again for tuning in. Please share the video with others, give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Please go ahead and support us on PayPal account. Anything can mean, can mean something. It will help us. Thanks again. Hit that notification bell, and we will see you on the next one.
Shareholding program, endogenous development, because this is concrete proof, and I invite the message for the Burkinabe. This is part of the industrialization process. We can only be proud of our approach, which is understood by the people. The message for the Burkinabe is to have confidence, because this is concrete proof, and I invite the Burkinabe to continue to subscribe to the popular shareholding program. Endogenous development is a doctrine. We can only develop through ourselves.
For the people of Bobo, this plant will bring a new lease of life and provide an economic boost to the country's second largest city. The factory will be processed
that the state will provide the means to support tomato growers so that they can produce enough, because the factory produces 100 tons of tomatoes a day, and so we'll have enough raw material to keep the plant running full-time.
Agriculture is a cornerstone of the Burkina economy, with the sector engaging almost 90% of the country's population. This tomato processing plant will generate over 100 direct and 7,000 indirect jobs for the country. Beryl